The floors of Station 17 had never been cleaner. Every morning, before the officers arrived, before the phones rang, before the smell of bad coffee filled the air, he was there. Thomas Granger, 78 years old, slightly hunched, a mop in one hand, a bucket in the other. Nobody knew where he lived. Nobody knew what he did outside of work. And almost nobody knew his full name. To most, he was just Old Tom. The rookies joked about him. He probably came with the building. I think he sleeps in the boiler room. They respected him in the way you respect someone who's always around, always quiet, always invisible. Tom didn't talk much, didn't smile often, but if you made a mess, he cleaned it. If you left a donut box out, he tossed it. And if you ever needed a wrench, an aspirin, or a story, he usually had one in his pocket. But no one, not even the captain, had any idea who he really was, until the day the plaque fell off the wall. It was an accident. One of the new recruits, Officer Jess Harper, was helping set up for the precinct's annual memorial ceremony. A few decorations, some folding chairs, and a handful of framed photos that lined the hallway of past officers. One frame was crooked. Jess reached up to straighten it, and the old plaque above it came loose. It clattered to the ground. Behind it, dust, cobwebs, and an old black-and-white photograph. She picked it up, wiped off the glass. It was a man in uniform, tall, proud, standing in front of a patrol car from the 1960s. His nameplate read, Sheriff T. Granger. Jess blinked. Granger? She turned and looked across the hall, at Old Tom, pushing his mop slowly down the corridor. The same eyes, the same jawline, just older. A lot older. She brought the frame over. Hey, Tom, is this you? He looked at it for a long moment, then smiled, just slightly. Used to be. Word spread like wildfire. By lunchtime, every officer in the station had heard. The janitor, the guy who refilled the toilet paper and cleaned puke out of squad cars, used to be the sheriff of the entire county. And not just any sheriff. A legend. The old photo made its way from desk to desk. Officers squinted at it, held it up to the light, looked back and forth from the black and white image to the quiet man pushing a mop down the hall. No one wanted to believe it, until Captain Diaz walked in, saw the photo, and went absolutely pale. That's Thomas Ironhand Granger. The room froze. Ironhand? Nobody had heard that name in decades. Captain Diaz nodded slowly, reverently. He was sheriff of this whole county for nearly 20 years, back when this place was crawling with cartel smugglers, biker gangs, and crooked lawmen. The man once chased 2 armed fugitives across the border, on foot, and brought them both back in cuffs. He looked down the hallway toward the old man in coveralls and rubber gloves. He didn't clean buildings back then. He cleaned up this town. Word spread. Captain Diaz pulled his own file, and deep in the archives, under layers of dust and yellowed paper, they found it. Granger's personnel file. Commendations. Handwritten letters from governors. Headlines, Sheriff Granger honored at state capitol. Sheriff risks life to save family from burning trailer. One-man sheriff's office breaks multi-state smuggling ring. It was a legacy any officer would kill to have, Then it all stopped. No retirement, no medal ceremony, nothing after 1983. It was like he vanished. Officer Jess Harper couldn't let it go. She sat across from Tom during lunch, holding a folder thick with clippings and printouts. "Why'd you walk away?" Tom didn't flinch. He just took another bite of sandwich, sipped his coffee. "Got tired of being called sir. But you were a hero." "No," he said. "I was just a man with a badge, trying to do the job." She frowned. "But why a janitor? Why here? Why now?" Tom leaned back. "Because some people do the job for glory, and some do it because the work still needs doing." That night, Jess stayed after hours. She couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about it. She logged into the station's archived server. And there, under layers of restricted access and buried folders, she found it. An incident report dated October 4th, 1983. Label, classified, internal use only. She clicked. The story it told wasn't one of burnout or retirement. It was a cover-up. Sheriff Thomas Granger had uncovered a ring of corruption inside his own department. 3 deputies, a lieutenant, even a local judge. They were laundering cartel money through fake busts. Granger was preparing to go public. Had already testified in a sealed deposition. The day before his scheduled hearing, his patrol car exploded. He survived, barely, and by the time he got out of the hospital, the town had moved on. The new sheriff was sworn in without a word, and Thomas Granger, he vanished. The next morning, Jess knocked on the custodial closet door. Tom answered with a towel slung over one shoulder. She didn't say anything, just held up the printed file. He looked at it, then nodded. "You know now." "So, why didn't you fight back?" she asked. "You let them bury you." "No," he said. "I let them think they did." He paused. "But I never stopped watching." And a man who watches long enough eventually sees everything he needs to. Within 2 days, everyone at Station 17 knew. Not just the whispers, not just some old janitor used to be someone. They knew the full story. Sheriff Thomas Granger. The file made the rounds. Jess hadn't meant for it to spread. She'd only shown one other rookie. But like all truth that's been buried too long, it came flooding out. People stopped calling him Old Tom. They started saying sir. Some stood up when he walked into the room. Others nodded silently, out of shame or respect. Tom, he just kept doing what he always did. He mopped the same hallway, changed the same flickering light, poured the same burnt coffee by 6:00 a.m. He never asked for applause. He was there, because it still mattered to him. But then, the mayor came. She brought a suit, a tie, and a TV crew. "Mr. Granger, on behalf of the city, we'd like to honor—" "No thanks," he said, cutting her off. Then came a state senator, then a retired FBI field agent. One after another, they offered handshakes, medals, ceremonies. Each time Tom replied with the same words. "I wasn't silent because I was weak. I was silent because the town didn't need a hero. It needed someone to keep watching. But the world wasn't ready to let it go. The news hit local media first, then regional, then national. Legendary sheriff disappeared in plain sight for 40 years. From Janitor to Justice, the quiet legacy of Thomas Granger. The man who watched in silence. As the truth emerged, the pressure rose. And then came the next storm. Two of the officers Sheriff Granger tried to expose decades ago, still alive, still quietly working in civil offices. Within weeks, they were both indicted. Their records reopened. Their names dragged through every courtroom in the state. The judge who covered it all up retired. But when the media found him, he had no answers, just a closed door and a legacy unraveling. But Granger didn't speak. He didn't sit for interviews. He didn't smile for newspapers. He did what he always did, showed up at dawn, swept the front steps, and nodded to every officer who passed him. Then, one Sunday, Jess walked into the precinct and saw something new. Right there in the main hall. The Wall of Honor. It had always been dusty, overlooked, filled with plaques for people long gone. Now, it had a new centerpiece, a framed photo, the black and white shot of young Thomas Granger in his old sheriff's uniform, and underneath it, Thomas Granger Sheriff, 1965 to 1983 Custodian, 1984 to 2024 Protector. Witness, legend, no statue, no parade, but something better. The truth. And for once, truth didn't stay buried. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. The reporters moved on. The noise quieted. But inside Station 17, something changed. Officers paused when they saw him, not because he mopped the floors, but because they knew he once carried a badge, a gun, and the burden of an entire town. And when no one would listen, he chose to stay and watch and protect in silence. Jess Harper visited him often. She had her badge now, her patrol car, her own rookie partner. And every time she passed him in the hallway, she nodded. One day she asked, "Do you ever regret not speaking out sooner?" Tom looked at her, then said simply, "No, the truth always shows up. Sometimes late, but it shows up. And when it does, it walks taller than any lie ever could." On his final day, there was no announcement, no party, no cake in the break room. He just turned in his keys, took off his gloves, and walked out the front door. But waiting for him on the sidewalk were every officer in the precinct, full uniform, standing at attention, saluting. For a long second, no one moved. Then Thomas Granger stood tall, straightened his back, and returned the salute, crisp, proud, complete. Then he turned and walked into the sunrise. A janitor, a sheriff, a legend. He didn't need a badge to be a protector. He didn't need applause to be a hero. For 40 years, Thomas Granger walked quiet halls, carrying a truth no one saw, until the day the world finally looked. Thank you for watching. If you want to get more of that kind of stories, press like and check out our channel.